Hello, everybody. So today I was going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the electronics industry and who exported electronics in the last 5 years or so. But particularly, I was interested in not the big players like China and Taiwan and South Korea, but the other ones that are actually smaller outside the United States. So in particular, I want to look at Mexico today. So down here, it's basically about $100 billion of exports. They export as much as Japan instantly. So that's pretty interesting to see that basically Mexico and Japan, in terms of electronics, are basically on the same level. But I wanted to basically look at this data with you and kind of sort out what's going on. So here you can see Mexico. Kind of break this out so you can see the size of Mexico. So they're basically exporting a lot of that to the United States, almost all of it. And then they're also sending a lot of that back to China, India, Brazil, and even Germany out in Europe. But basically they have a pretty universal map with where they're exporting their electronics to. But basically it's mainly the United States. So again, that's the map there. What are they exporting? So it's a little bit weird. It's actually surprising. They're doing a lot of insulated electrical wire transmission apparatus for radios, monitors, and projectors, electrical boards, so PCBs, electrical transformers, electrical apparatus, less than 1K volts, electrical motors. But then if you change the number here to 6 digits to more precise, you can see they're doing transmit and receive apparatus for radios and televisions. So a lot of radios and TVs down in Mexico. And then they're doing vehicle parts and then electronic controllers, less than 1 kilovolts. And then monolithic integrated circuits. And then electrical machines. And then you see static converters. Now, let's just compare this to Japan really quick. Or let's look at the world and see what that's going on. So most of the world is doing actually electronic integrated circuits, and then the transmit and receive apparatus. So that could be cell phones as well. So basically, it's integrated circuits and then cell phones, and then you see some of the other areas here. It's kind of hard to see, but that's for the world. But let's just look at Mexico. So I'm a little bit familiar with what's going on in Mexico. I've worked with AI to kind of study what's going on. But if you look at basically all the jobs in Mexico, basically you got Foxconn, kind of a PCB technology company. But a lot of this is actually going on in Guadalajara, but the first one is actually not in Guadalajara. And that's one thing that kind of surprised me, how much electronics is actually going on in Guadalajara. It's not exactly the safest place in the world, but we're going to look at some of these maps and look at Foxconn, see if we can find this out. Alright, so here we are at Foxconn. This is the first time I'm taking a look. Looks very close to the United States, in fact. Look at that, right on the border, right? So you can see they're basically putting this right in Mexico and on the border. So this is kind of a weird location for Foxconn, but you can see right out here in the desert, almost in New Mexico. Albuquerque is quite far from here, Santa Fe, but I would say this is one of the weirdest locations I've ever seen for a semiconductor facility. And then how do they get people in and out of there? What town are they working with? You can see probably Juarez and then El Paso. But basically a lot of that coming out of Mexico. You just drive from the town over here. So it's not too far, but that's like 10 miles, 15 mile commute.
Stop.
Hey, be quiet, y'all. So sorry, my dog is making a little bit of noise right now. But interesting to see. This is pretty interesting city because it's right on the border, Texas, El Paso. There's been a lot of conflict just with border disputes getting in and out of Mexico in that region. I'm going to go get a glass of water. I'll be right back. So this says quite a lot about the way Foxconn perceives the electronics industry. Basically, the degree probably doesn't matter as much. Like in the United States, getting a master's or PhD oftentimes can help you get into a pretty large semiconductor company, like the way Taiwan Semiconductor thinks. But here they specifically put it on the Mexico side, the border, and basically super interesting. So it looks like they even got a little area so that U.S. Customs and Border Protection can actually, if you're on the American side, you can work there too. But it looks like that probably you don't want to have to go through border inspection every single day just to get to work. So that's the first pretty interesting. It looks like they got 20,000 employees. And let's just look at the fab really quick, see what they're doing here. So they got a different company over here, Sunrise Manufacturing. So I'm not sure what they're doing, but pretty interesting. Let's see if we can get a street view. Aha, we can get a street view pretty good here. So maybe we'll go right here. Look at this Foxconn facility. Well, I would say this is pretty nice and fancy compared to some of the places I've been seeing over in Vietnam. Looks like almost brand new. The road looks like it's got some debris in it. But overall, pretty interesting just to see what's going on. It looks like they have their own busing system going in and out of Foxconn. Let's see, let's get a little closer here. Looks like employees are parking over here. And you can kind of see what's going on. Let's look at one more spot, maybe back. This looks like about as close as we can get. R.R. Donnelly's back here. But interesting to see in Mexico, our neighbors doing the semiconductor stuff there. So let's go to the next place. I want to look at, this is be software, so Oracle will be down in Guadalajara, Tijuana, Samsung Electronics. So let's look at this one. Because that's kind of a mobile phone manufacturing, and it looks like it's one of the larger ones. Their global sales revenue is quite large. And this will also be right on the border, incidentally. So Samsung Mexicana, and then you'll see the American border. Well, maybe not. What am I thinking? Oh yeah, so there it is. There's the border. So this is just a different side of Tijuana I didn't know about. So basically the American border right here. You got San Diego, and then you got Samsung Mexicana. So, and then actually look at this though. So you got quite a lot of factories here. This is not a joke. So there's quite a lot of. This is a big technological park area. This is kind of looking like size of Silicon Valley areas. But if you compare, basically got a couple miles and then a nice little lake here right on those things. So let's see if we can zoom in and get a picture of what's going on at Samsung. Try to pick right in here. See the Samsung building. So they got a big Samsung sign. And it looks fairly similar to what we see internationally. It looks kind of on the same order of prestige as in Vietnam. But I would say quite large, quite a large building. So it might be this whole area. We got, looks like they got maybe this building, maybe that building as well. They look very similarly designed. And then some shipping containers out in here. So quite large. Coca-Cola next door. Hyundai Tijuana plant. And then another Samsung on this side, so quite large. So let's look at this one here just to see if this also shows Samsung. So it looks like they got, incidentally, some people like a tent outside. But I'm actually just surprised at how similar this looks to Vietnam, except for much more drier climate. But again, it's interesting that they chose this right next to the border, and the rationale behind that. But actually, Tijuana is supposed to be not super safe. It's supposed to be one of the most unsafe places in all of Mexico, but maybe it could depend on the side of the town, and some other factors like that. But it looks like pretty interesting to see Samsung located over there. So let's look at the next one. Let's get into the main area. So Guadalajara is perhaps the main thing, and what happened here is that Intel basically moved into Guadalajara, Josco, and then basically started up doing business in this area. So if we go to here, Intel Design Center. Wow, look at this building though. Wow, that looks nice. English on the outside, which is kind of interesting. But wow, fancy building. This is fancier than their headquarters, I would say. I've seen their headquarters in Silicon Valley, and this looks more impressive. On Mission Boulevard in Santa Clara, but it looks like this is actually under a lot of construction here, so they don't even have the photographs. This is from 2026, but maybe those are. So maybe this is a big change. But let's look out where this is located so you can see. So the interesting thing is I've thought about doing work down in Puerto Vallarta, but a lot of the technology companies basically come out into here. So you can see they're on the west side, maybe closer to Puerto Vallarta, but that's 50 miles. It's like kind of going from San Jose or San Francisco to Santa Cruz. So there's quite a big distance between this area, Guadalajara, and downtown. So, but basically, you can see there's going to be. Look at they got another one over here, Laboratorio, but it looks like they basically gave Intel quite a lot of space right here up in the mountains, and you can't really see what this other stuff is, but this looks like a huge. They got a fitness center, quite a large facility here. So perhaps even manufacturing, right? So anything else that we want to look at? Let's look at these guys. These guys have quite a lot of employees. Let's see. They specialize in PCB printed circuit board design. And let me know if there's anything else you wanted to look at. But let's look at these guys because I haven't heard of them before. They're also in Guadalajara. So look at this. So they got quite a number of places here. And they're also kind of on the same side. Now Intel is back into here. These guys are right along in here. So they're doing PCB design. And they look like they're quite large. And they may be one of the earlier ones. Let's just do the history. What's the in Mexico? Let's find out a little bit of the history here. As it loads up the model, you can see that the border region was actually pretty important in the initial history of what was going on. So basically, it's the Silicon Valley of Mexico, and it started in the late 1980s, 1990s. Was originally founded in San Jose in 1980, entered in Mexico in the late 1980s, Guadalajara area as their primary base. So pretty interesting just to see what's going on here. I have a separate document that I'm working on. I'm trying to work on selling cell phones down in Mexico. So we've been working with some places down there to try to see what's going on. But looks like they've been going through some mergers and working on actually more cell phone stuff, right? So they say 5G in here. State-of-the-art labs, designed for manufacturing, and their operations for medical, automotive, high-end computing. So, quite an interesting company. So, actually started in Silicon Valley and then moved down to Mexico. So, interesting place, and they got quite a lot of employees. Let's look at Softtek in their headquarters. This might be the biggest. Looks like this is their headquarters, so maybe Mexican company. I've heard of these guys. Let's just look at what's going on for them. Now this is totally different area. This is a friend of mine was actually from this region, but there's this big, huge mountain here, Monterrey, Mexico, and we can see here. Softtek, kind of a smaller footprint, but maybe more software oriented. See if we can get a view from the street. Whoa. So, this is their "Let's build a better future together" in English, interestingly. So, that's kind of surprising to see in Mexico, actually. There's a lot of... but Monterrey is actually pretty busy. You can see the cars look pretty nice here. And for some reason, Monterrey has actually been doing quite well over the years. One of the reasons for that is that the farmland on Mexico is actually on this side. So you see the green area down into here. So these larger cities like Monterrey and kind of take advantage of the coastal region, which has a lot of the food. So low-cost food means, and then low-cost housing and other areas like that. So, but interesting to see. Let's see if there's anything else that we really want to take a look at. So let's just ask the AI here: is soft native Mexican company, just to make sure. It's kind of nice to see one that's purely Mexican on this list. 100% Mexican company. And looks like they are becoming a national icon. Why it matters for Mexico. Mexican dream. So yeah, so Softtek might be one of the more important ones that are purely Mexican on this list. And then I think we should probably take a look at Flex, their North Campus, because this is such a large employer. Right before we finish up this. And again, this is pretty close to where Intel was, right? So Intel was right in here, I believe, up in that area. But here we got Flex, and then quite near the airport. Okay, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed the study. This is again out near Guadalajara, anyway, let me know if you got some questions. I'd be glad to discuss electronics in Mexico with you. Thank you so much.